5 years in real estate is crazy because most people don't even last their first year. I believe statistics say over 80% of real estate agents they fail within their first year. So to make it half a decade is amazing, honestly. And at this point in life, I've been able to evolve beyond just a traditional real estate agent. I've actually scaled out where I'm not even in production now as far as selling houses or helping people sell houses and such on a regular basis. I've actually been able to evolve into a real estate owner. And when I say real estate owner, that's multifaceted. So, real estate owner meaning I do own real estate now. I have rental properties and I also purchase real estate to flip or to assign for profit. So that's one avenue of being an owner. And the second avenue of being a real estate owner is also owning multiple real estate companies. I own multiple real estate companies already, and I'm already in the process of purchasing more real estate companies that are adjacent and vertically integrated to my main real estate company, which is Assets Real Estate, which has multiple arms of it that are all able to bring in profit, different revenue streams and such. My name is Chris A. Williams, real estate owner, investor, and entrepreneur. That's what I am today, but it all started way back when, 6 years ago, when I decided that I do want to pursue real estate. So when it comes to real estate and getting in real estate, a lot of people who do want to get started in real estate usually do because they know somebody who's already in real estate. They may have a family member, a friend, something like that, somebody to look up to, which inspires them to get into real estate. For me, that was not the case literally whatsoever. Growing up, I knew literally nothing about real estate. I knew nothing about business, entrepreneurship, none of that really. The only thing I knew about real estate was what I saw on TV, which was on HGTV, because my mom used to love watching HGTV growing up, but I hated HGTV. I didn't care nothing about it. I thought it was so boring to the point that when she would watch it, I would literally go in the other room and do something else because I could care less about real estate. So it's funny how that full circle moment worked. So coming up, I actually transferred to private school when I got to high school to pursue my dreams in football. So I wanted to play football at the next level. I knew that I wasn't going to go to college because I didn't like school that much. I knew I wasn't going to get an academic scholarship. So I thought, okay, how can I get to college? Because I thought that when you graduated high school, you pretty much had to go to college or the military. Like it was no alternatives. And I didn't want to go into the military. So I knew I had to go to college. Now, like I said, I knew I wasn't that academically smart. And so I figured I had to earn my athletic scholarship. I had some God-given natural athletic abilities. And I also knew through hard work, I would be able to further cultivate those. So that's what I did. After I transferred to private school, I was constantly in the weight room, working, constantly improving, even outside of our team workouts and things like that. As soon as I got home, I was grinding. I was running the ladders, doing cone drills, doing all of that. I always pictured in my head, hey, there's a kid in Iowa who's competing for the same scholarship as you. Are you actually going to let him beat you? Or are you going to put in these extra reps? Are you going to put in that extra work? So I'll be working out sundown to sun up a lot of times, just putting in the work. And that's how I became successful on the football field specifically. And I got multiple accolades for that, multiple time All-State, 12 or so scholarships, millions of dollars in scholarships in which I had. And I had committed to a school for football, and I was geared up, ready to go, ready to pursue my next path in life after graduating high school, which would be football. And I was going to major in communications. It's because I wanted to be a sports announcer because I knew sports. I thought, all right, cool. If I know that, that's going to be my next career path. None of that happened. And the reason that didn't happen is because a week before training camp started for football, I was checking my scholarship portal and there was no money in there whatsoever. And I thought it was fine. I thought, hey, I'm going to just show up there and everything's going to work itself out, no issue. But my dad, he's actually the one that told me, hey, just check it just to be safe. Like, call the coach, see what's up, what's going on. And when I made that call to the coach, he let me know that I didn't have a scholarship. And I said, how can this happen? I committed to you on the basis that I have a scholarship. And he said, well, Chris, you should have committed to us that day. And yeah, they killed me because the thing is, when I committed to them, after I committed to them, they welcomed me with open arms, posted it, did all that. They never told me when I committed to them that I didn't have a scholarship to commit to. So I informed him of that. And he was like, well, yeah, I'm sorry for the miscommunication. There's nothing we can do. Or you can either come here and earn a scholarship, which I had already earned, or you can stay at home. So I said, I'm gonna stay at home. I'm gonna figure it out. And I went through a period where I was just figuring it out, And that period was a super rough time because my whole identity at that point in life was basically football, was basically sports. That's what everybody knew me as. So to have a complete identity shift in that time was tough. So in that period of figuring things out, I actually went to community college. Like I said, college just wasn't for me. So I did a semester of community college. Then I dropped out. I was working 2 jobs at the time. Foot Locker, Enterprise, was still staying with my parents. It's hard though, being an adult, being in your parents' house. I mean, I was 19 at the time, but in the real world, in my real adult jobs, I was seen as a leader. So it's hard to come back home and basically be told, hey, like after working 12 hours today, you gotta wash the dishes or sweep the floor. That's not really something that I was looking to hear. So there was constant clashing between me and my parents, which eventually led to me getting kicked out of my parents' house. So yeah, I mean things like that. I mean it was tough. I mean even before that, like I didn't have a car either. So I was going to work and going to school and taking Ubers, and when my Uber money ran out, I had to rely on friends and the friends weren't available. I had to walk from the mall to my parents' house, which was a 3.5 hour walk after working an 8 hour shift. So times like that, man, they were tough. But I'm grateful that they happened because it built a lot of character. I ended up staying with my grandma and I was gonna go into the military. Because at that point, I thought I really had no other options. College didn't work out. Was in the process of doing the military. I did the ASVAB, got a super high score in the ASVAB. Was gonna get a top security clearance and intelligence and all of that. Like everything was looking good for that. But when it came to getting medically cleared and such, I had a heart murmur all my life. It's never really affected me too much. But for the military, they're very particular on that. So they made me do a bunch of tests and do a whole bunch of different things when it comes to that. And the process was prolonged. Usually it's supposed to be a few months process to be able to get shipped out and move forward in the military. But mine's ended up being like over a year. And at that point, I just got so frustrated. I got fed up. So I was like, all right, what's next? And like I said, I was working at Enterprise, but a lot of people, when they think of Enterprise, they're thinking about the people who work behind the desk, the people who you talk to when you're getting the car. I wasn't that guy. I was the guy in the back nobody sees. I was the guy that was cleaning the cars, the dirty cars that people return. Now, the great thing about cleaning cars is I didn't have to have a lot of conversation with people, which means that I could either listen to music or listen to Audible or listen to podcasts and things like that. So just how I am, I've always liked to achieve higher thinking, higher learning. That's the reason why I got in trouble in school so much, is because I didn't care what the teacher was talking about. Really, I was watching those videos on YouTube about Warren Buffett and investing and listening to entrepreneurs and such. So when it came to Enterprise cleaning out cars, I wasn't listening to music. I was actually listening to podcasts. And one of my favorite podcasts, the host, he was talking about real estate. He was talking about real estate all the time. And eventually got to the point I'm like, man, like, what is this real estate thing? I started doing some research, and what he said sounded good. It sounded like a great way, like a great path in which I could pursue. But I realized he was talking about real estate investing. And at the time, I'm like, bro, I'm 19, I have no money. Like, how can I get into real estate investing? Because I didn't know what I know now. But back then, I was like, okay, I thought you had to have a bunch of money to be able to do real estate investing. I still want to do real estate. Let me explore some other options. Let me look around. A real estate agent popped up, and that really spoke to me. It appealed to me because at the time, also, I was working at Foot Locker, selling shoes at Foot Locker, and that's already sales, right? So my thoughts was, okay, if I can sell shoes, I can sell houses, no issue. So that's why real estate agent appealed to me. I'm like, cool, all I have to do is be 18, just got to pay a little bit to get licensed. For me, it was also seemed to be some security in a sense, because even though it's commission with no salary, it's more closer to a job, I'll say, than being like a full-time investor, things like that. You know, it seemed not as much risk. And I just know, like, I've always been a hard worker, so I'm like, I can get good at this and be able to make some good commission money. Now the thing was, at that time, I just wanted to make $100,000 a year. Like, I thought, like, okay, if I can make 6 figures, I'm lit. Like, my whole life is made. Like, as soon as I make 6 figures, I can start a family. I can have money put aside for the kids for college and do all of that. So I didn't even know the true vastness or the true like potential that real estate really had at the time. I was still thinking very small. But yeah, I decided on being a real estate agent. And a few months later, I got licensed, passed my test the first time, and became a licensed agent 5 years ago, March 30th, 2020, in the midst of COVID, in the midst of the world shutting down. And 5 years later, here we are. So y'all remember how I said that when I got in real estate, I thought it would be pretty much what I was doing already, because I was like, okay, if I could sell shoes, I could sell houses. Ended up being nothing like that. My first year was such a struggle. My first year, I wanted to quit pretty much every day. Nothing was working out in which the way I thought it would. Like I told you guys before, like I thought that hard work can just push you no matter what. That wasn't the case in real estate. I was the first one in, last one out, working 80 plus hours a week, doing all the things like the hard working things. I was in the office on Saturdays, Sundays. Nobody was there. I was on a first name basis with the janitors because they came late night, of course, and I was still always there. It wasn't working at all. My first year, I only sold 2 houses, and I got licensed in March. I only sold one in August, and I sold one in November. I made $12,000 that entire year, which was actually less than what I made working my part-time jobs at Foot Locker and Enterprise. And that was such a struggle. There were so many dark times, especially specifically 2020, because all my friends were like, I like to call it hood rich basically, because at that time unemployment was on the rise. People were getting money from unemployment, or people were getting money from PPP loans, SBA grants, all of these things, and I didn't do any of that. So people were basically at home making $1,000 per week, and here I am the whole year making $12,000, which I'm pretty sure averages less than $100 a week, maybe something like that. It was a really tough time, and I kind of had to dial back from socials because I would just get so upset. Like, hey, I'm putting all this work in, I'm doing all the stuff that I'm supposed to do, but why is it not working? And it was a very long period. Even though, like, looking back on it, okay, a whole year doesn't seem like super long, but at the time, it definitely seemed super long. And I had some even darker moments in the time, like I was supposed to close another deal in October of that year, and literally 2 days before closing, the deal fell apart because the lender on the deal, they didn't do their job correctly, unfortunately. They didn't check the borrower's tax statements. So usually that's something that would have been caught initially when the borrower first sends their documents, but for whatever reason, it wasn't caught on that deal. So we had already done everything at that point. We had done our final walkthrough, we had done the inspections, appraisal. All we were waiting on was to clear the close. That was a tough moment because I was really counting on that commission check because I was in so much debt at the time from only making that amount of money, still having bills due, rent, payments to even be a licensed agent. All these things were stacking up and nothing was really happening. So I remember after that, like I shared the experience in our team meeting, and I was super upset about it. Like I was basically on the verge of tears. And my broker at the time, he talked to me about it too. And what he said at the time, it didn't resonate with me at all. Like I thought he was just kind of like just being super harsh. And what he said to me was, if you're this upset about one deal, that means you don't have enough going on. And that really took me aback. But it's real though. And I tell my agents a similar thing also too. Like, hey, you should never be upset about just one deal, one transaction, because that means you don't have enough going on. Why put everything all into one bucket when there's so many variables, there's so many things that are out of your control? My saying now is that volume negates luck. So the more volume you do, the less you have to rely on luck, the less you have to rely on chances, the more success you'll have with the more volume that you do. It was a really rough time because at that time I'm still going through the identity shift still at that time of being a former football player. People are asking, hey, why are you still here? I thought you were supposed to be off somewhere in college playing football. Like, why are you still here? And then rebranding myself as an agent. And then with that rebrand, a lot of times when you rebrand yourself, people don't really support you at first necessarily. They may support you like when you make your first post or things like that, but they're not necessarily going to recommend clients to you because their reputation's on the line also too, and you're still too new. They don't really know like if you're actually going to be able to service people good or not. So I was dealing with all that, and I mean it was even at the point where I had family members. They're like, hey, FedEx is hiring, UPS is hiring, you can get holiday pay. Just do that. Just do this right now. Wait for the real estate thing to take off. You don't have to work so hard in that. Like, it'll happen. So all that was constantly in my ear. But at the end of the day, I just had faith in God. Like, I knew that God would provide. I didn't know when he would, but I just knew that it would happen. And I just know that one of my favorite things in the Bible is that we talk about faith all the time, but the Bible also says faith without works is dead. And I was putting in the work. So I'm like, all right, God, I'm putting in the work. Can you meet me? Can you meet me halfway? Can you meet me quarter way? Like what's going on here? And he did. It wasn't on my timing. It was on a much later timing, but I think that was perfect timing. because if he had given me all the blessings and such that I wanted my first year, I wouldn't have known how to handle it. It would have got wasted. So even though at the time I'm like, God, yo, please, like, where's my blessings at? Like, what's happening? Like, I'm really struggling out here. Like, I'm on my knees pretty much every day praying, like, for things to change. It seemed like nothing was happening. It seemed like nothing was working. But looking back on it, that was his hand and guiding me and letting me know that, hey, like, you're still not ready for it yet. You still got to put in some more work, then you'll be ready for it. And so year two, that's when he determined I was ready for it. And like I said, my first year, I only sold 2 deals. By year two, within the first month, I had sold more than 2 deals, and I ended up selling 24 deals that year. And that was my first 6-figure year, my second year in real estate. And it was really cool because that was always my goal when I started in real estate. Was I wanted to make 6 figures and I wanted to sell 24 deals, because I knew 24 deals is 2 a month, and that's basically 2 paychecks a month. I figure if I work a W-2 job, I would be getting paid twice a month anyways, but commission checks from real estate are much higher than anything that I would make for a W-2 job anyways. So that was really my goal. And I was able to do that just based off, I didn't really change much, to be honest with you, based on what I did my first year. But I think like God was able to unfold those blessings for me my second year, really give those to me. Some of the things that I did was cold calling all the time, cold texting specifically. I was that guy that would go in our pond, basically, of old leads that had signed up 5 years ago, years and years ago, that nobody wanted to work because all the other agents thought they were a waste of time. I was that guy that was reaching out to all of those leads. I was calling them, texting them, and yeah, I would hear so many no's. I would get cussed out, get hung up on. People would be like, "How old are you? Like, why are you calling me?" All this stuff. But I just was persistent, and I just know, like I said, volume negates luck. So, all right, if I make 10 calls, then I'll probably hear 10 no's. But okay, what if I make 100 calls? Okay, I'm more likely to get a yes than if I make 10. Okay, what if I make 1,000 calls? I'm guarantee I'm gonna hear at least one yes at some point. So that was just my mindset, and I just kept on going. And the clientele just started to build up, and then just started ramping up and ramping up. And then going to year three, by year three, I didn't really have to do any of that anymore. All my business was pretty much coming from social media and referrals at that point. I didn't have to do the hard groundwork like I had to do year one and year two of the constant cold calling, cold texting, and all those things. But that's why it's super important. I tell people you have to lay that foundation. People look at me now and see what I'm doing on social media and see how easy I am able to get clientele from social media, but they fail to realize that what I did in year one and year two, nobody would have trusted me from social media if I hadn't already had a consistent client base. When I started getting clients from social media very consistently, I had closed a bunch of deals before then. I had a bunch of reviews. The resume was already there. So by the time I started posting actively on social media and really trying to gain clients from social media, it was a breeze, because whenever clients were like, okay, who are you? Like, what is your past proof of concept? I'm like, hey, I closed this amount of deals, this amount of volume. Here are all the reviews from my clients. Here are pictures of us closing. No brainer, easy. Versus somebody who just wants to pop off the brand the second they get licensed on social media. It's going to be very hard to do because you have no proof of concept. Why would anybody trust you? So year two, we talked about my blessings I was able to have. Like, all my goals in real estate I was able to accomplish, but there was still one thing missing, which was I wanted to buy my first personal home. So where I was at in my brokerage at the time, pretty much the goals were like, when you had made it, was if you made 6 figures and if you had one personal home that you lived in, like you owned a home, you didn't rent a place. So that was all that I was aspiring to as soon as I got licensed, because that was what was constantly pushed for me. So making 6 figures in my early 20s, cool, but I still hadn't bought the home yet. Now the thing is, to purchase a home, you need 2 years worth of income, at least when you're purchasing as a real estate agent. Remember, my first year was trash. I only made 12,000, so nothing there. But my second year, I was able to make 6 figures plus, so it was able to factor in. So coming into my third year, as soon as I filed my taxes, I was ready to purchase my home. That's literally the first thing I did. And I had been saving up money because I always lived conservative, always lived below my means, honestly had PTSD my first year basically being broke. So I just never wanted to put myself in that position again. So I was just saving up. So at that time, for purchasing my home, I had tens of thousands in my account to play with when it comes to purchasing my home. Now, I went on the home search, and that lasted for a couple months. That was a time in which I prayed a lot also too. And I was like, okay, I was seeing houses, they could be potentially good deals, but nothing, it wasn't feeling right. Like they just weren't feeling right. I remember I saw the house that I eventually purchased, and it just felt right. Like it marked all my check boxes. Everything seemed good with it. I just had that feeling. So I decided to do it, and I got an amazing deal on that one. The seller, they paid for all my closing costs. I also had my commission in which I put towards the deal. So I brought my interest rate down to the lowest possible point to get me the cheapest monthly payment. And because they gave me closing cost assistance, I was able to get a check back at closing. So I had a very low monthly mortgage payment, and I got a check back at closing, and I purchased my first house in March of that year. So after I bought my first house, the hardest thing about accomplishing your goals, at least for me, is it's like you kind of feel empty because when I've discovered that I like the process more than I like the result. So when I actually get the result, it's kind of an empty feeling because it's like, all right, what's next? And if there is nothing next, then what? And I was stuck at that point where there was nothing next. I had the six figures, I had a house, I had what I was doing per year, goals met, but I didn't know anything else because my environment at the time, they taught me like, hey, like this is when you made it. So I thought I made it. So what I did after buying my house was when nobody else should do. I took around 6 months off where I pretty much didn't work at all, where I was just living, having fun, enjoying the fruits of my labor, which is fun until it isn't, until that money in your account starts dwindling down. What a lot of people need to realize also too is when you take time off, you completely destroy your momentum. So yeah, I mean, even if you have money saved up, that's cool, but money eventually gets spent. And when you're ready to get back in the field, you're starting from zero with no momentum. And especially if you spent significant time off, you know how hard it is putting in consistent hours again, even going to meetings and doing these things when you haven't done it for so long. And especially when you feel like, hey, I made it, which I felt like at the time, it just wasn't a good mix. So I decided that I needed to switch up my environment. I needed to change the place that I was at. I need to switch to a different brokerage and get around something in which I could expand my mind more, in which I felt like I could really grow, in which I could really scale my business. Now, at the time, I didn't really know what scale my business. I wanted to have a brokerage by 25. Crazy thing. That was literally one of my things. I don't know why I said 25. I set a lot of goals for myself at 25 because I was like, all right, 25 is like when I'm gonna be done. That's when I need to have made it. So I was like, okay, I want to make six figures by 25. I want to have brought a Tesla by 25. I want to have my own brokerage at 25. So the reason why I wanted to even have my own brokerage is because I wanted to lead people and I wanted to get 100% my commission, honestly. And I thought to do that, you had to have your own brokerage. Now, when I was in the process of making my switch, I was weighing different options. I was being heavily recruited by different companies at the time, especially then because that's when my social media was first starting to take off and things like that. So a lot of people saw me as an asset, but nothing was really checking all my boxes. Similar to how I was feeling when I was purchasing my house, I'm like, nothing's really checking my boxes. Like, yeah, some things are cool, some things actually really sound good, some things are 9s out of 10s, but I'm very picky, I'm very particular, especially when I'm making a big move. I wanted that 10 out of 10, and I just wasn't getting it. So I was just like, I'll just kind of just be in this place of wait until I get that 10 out of 10. And then one random day, I get a DM from this guy who actually is one of my business partners now, and he was like, what's up? I'm like, what's up? And he was like, yo, can we hop on a call? And at first I was kind of like ignoring it because like people was reaching out all the time and I try not to waste time and things like that. But I did hop on a call with him, and I remember what he was telling me about what he was looking to do with his company and how I could fit in. It was really exactly what I was looking for. I'm like, bro, did you read my mind? Like, this is weird. And the thing is, at that time, I hadn't told anybody about what I was looking to do as far as, my future moves, except my mom. And I know he didn't know my mom. So I'm like, yo, how does he know all this? It was like word for word, bar for bar, pretty much every single thing that I was looking for. So I'm like, yo, this guy has to be from God. So I was still kind of playing it to the left a little bit. I'm like, we'll see. I was scheduled to go on a trip to LA at that time. And I was like, yeah, I'll let you know when I get back. During the time, my time of wait and such, I was just praying about it. I was like seeking wisdom on it, and it just felt right to do it. So when I came back, I let him know like, hey, I'm gonna make this move. And I remember I actually was pretty scared to make the move because switching over to him, it was a super high risk because of where I was at on my original brokerage, my original team. I was basically a team member where I was getting fed leads consistently pretty much, and almost not salary in a sense because you still had to work the leads, you still had to earn your commission check, but you were getting leads per month. Switching over with him, I was on the entrepreneur status where basically I had to eat what I kill and find my own leads and find my own business. And at that point, just because I hadn't really done it before, that seemed kind of hard to do. And like I said, yeah, I was getting leads from social media, but it wasn't a ton per month yet. So I just stepped out in faith. I said, God, like, let's make this work, because I was scared. I literally thought to myself, like, hey, if I make this move, this is either gonna 100x my business or get me out of the business. And I did it. And I mean, the things that I've been able to learn from at my time with working with the company was so amazing. Like, I really learned growth, scaling, the investing side. I didn't really know anything about the real estate investing side beforehand. I learned so much about the real estate investing side where I was able to learn how to do deals myself, where I was able to make money from giving other people deals and really grow my business. From at that time previously, I was pretty much just a buyer's agent, only working with buyers, to switching over, I became primary listing agent, and then just constant growth and constant elevation. Then switching over to learn about real estate investing, then switching over to being a real estate investor myself, then switching and scaling up to having the team, but stepping out of production, now scaling up to company and brokerage owner, and just so on and so on. The ladder just keeps on climbing. Like, we just keep on climbing the ladder and the bar just keeps on setting for higher. So remember, I said my goal in real estate when I first started was making 6 figures a year. So 100,000 is the entire year. I thought, like, that's when you had made it, right? But when I switched over and I got with a new environment, I got in a completely new mind space, a completely new mindset, that's not enough. There's higher potential that's out there. And I realized that very quickly through conversations me and him were having. And I remember he was telling me about another one of our business partners. And he was like, hey, like, he's got this company, and it's crazy because he just said it so casually. He was like, yeah, this company has made him $112,000 last month, and so on and so on. I'm like, hold up now. Because remember, at this time, my mind is still thinking 100,000 the year, you're lit. I'm like, yo, this dude, he made $112,000 from one company last month? You mean to tell me he has multiple companies and he made that much money from one company? Like, is this legal? Is this possible? Like, how? Are you sure you didn't mean 12,000? You meant 112,000? So that just blew my mind. I'm like, yo, this is really crazy. Like, there's so much money that's out here. Because at that time, I couldn't even fathom making $100,000 in 1 month. But just being around that energy, being around that all the time, and constantly having that as a goal, I was able to achieve that for myself also too. And now it's like, okay, great. Now I'm in different rooms, different things where we're reaching for higher. And now instead of 6 figures a month, the goal is 7 figures a month, which seems like a crazy goal to many people. But I think that's why it's so important just to get around certain rooms where they're all thinking for higher, because the rooms that I'm in, they don't think that's unachievable. They think that's very regular, honestly. Some people, and then after we hit the 7 figures, then it may be 8 figures. Who knows, what it'll be from there on and there. So I think that's why it's super important to get in the right rooms and get in the right environments. So at that time, after making the switch, things were going great. I would say I was evolving as an agent, heavily working on listings at that point, able to get my time back. I even brought on showing agents and such to help my buyers actually view properties and all that, so I could spend most of my time just growing my business instead of showing houses and things like that all day. And also that's when my social media really started taking off too. Like, I remember I went from like 4,000 followers to like 15,000 followers within probably a month, to be honest with you. And then it just kept on going up and going up. And I have videos that had hundreds of thousands of views, and it became pretty standard. Like, okay, if I post a reel, I already know I'm gonna get 10,000 views within 2 hours. And it was like, just like clockwork. So if I ever needed a business to turn on, cool. All I knew is just post a reel, easy. I'm gonna be able to get leads easy from that. I had set automations up. So whenever leads came in from socials, they would be added to my CRM. The CRM will automatically reach out, and boom, we're able to close consistent deals from that. And it was cool because my business was almost on autopilot at that point. I was able to do 24 plus very consistently with pretty much little to no effort, just being honest with you. But I knew there was more. I'm like, all right, I'm making more than 6 figures now. I'm making pretty good money. I'm able to do what I want and travel how I want, but I still feel like we can grow some more. And at that time, because people, I'd been in business for a little bit at this point, so people were reaching out because they wanted to learn from me. They wanted to see the things I'm doing. They wanted to work directly with me. And I didn't really have the time to do it or the capacity. So I had the bright idea, like, okay, instead of having things all about me, instead of this the Chris A. Williams show, let me bring on some agents. Let me spread the wealth among them. Let me spread my knowledge among them. Let me give them the same opportunities that I have so they can work it and so they can start their own business and do their own thing. So I brought on my first agent, and within 90 days, and this agent actually, he had been licensed for, I want to say, over a year with a different company. He hadn't closed a single deal, unfortunately. He got with me, and within 90 days, he closed his first deal from a client that I gave him. And then he was able to consistently close deals. He closed a deal, pretty much right after that. And then he closed another deal. I'm like, all right, cool. If I can do this with one, let me do it with two. So I brought on another one, and she was doing great also too. Pretty much the same thing happened for her. So I believe she was able to close deals a little bit faster. And then I'm like, okay, if I could do it twice, I could do this unlimited times. So that's when assets really first came in about. So this is 2024 when we officially launched, and I would say within a few months of us officially launching, we had around 10 agents, and we were just consistently producing. We were out there killing it, just putting in work. And I was still in production at that point too, so I was helping some of the stats, like as far as buying, selling houses and all those things to that effect. But I also had a great team of killer agents around me who were willing to put in the work, who were willing to make the calls, willing to help out the clients and give clients a 5-star experience, because that's what really matters at the end of the day. Regardless of how much money we make, regardless of what we do, it's about servicing the client. And they were great at servicing the client, and that's why our very first year, we did over $58 million in sales. We sold over 180 homes, which is crazy for a first year, right? But like I said, I was still in production, but I kind of wanted to scale out of production at that point because I was just so busy. And I'm like, okay, well, I need to be able to replace the income that I'm getting from production. So what's next? So I circled back to that. Working with my business partners and such, I had a pretty good knowledge of real estate investing already. I just had never done it for myself, honestly, because I was scared. And there was one thing that I was stuck on that I just simply couldn't understand. So I got to the point where I was like, yo, Chris, stop playing. Like, we're just going to do it. And I did it. My very first real estate investment deal was a rental that I purchased, a rental property for myself that I purchased. Which is funny because a lot of people, when they get into real estate investing, they usually start like with wholesaling or assignments. Then they'll do something else, and then usually purchasing rentals is the final step. But for me, it was my first step. It's just the opportunity knocked, and I went through that door, and I made sure I was going to take advantage of it. I purchased a rental property, then I did an assignment, then I did a few more assignments, purchased some more properties, then I did a flip, then I purchased some more properties, and so on and so on. And now at this point, 2025, most of what I do on a day-to-day is centered around real estate investing and also growing my company, where I've been able to step out of production. I'm not necessarily selling houses anymore. Very rarely will I help clients sell houses. Typically, I refer that to the agents on my team. And the reason I do that is because they have been trained personally by me through our processes, through our staff, to make sure they're giving clients excellent service. And I just know me at this time, I can't give clients that much time because we're growing the companies and such. So I'd rather them be serviced by somebody who's going to best help them out, which the agents are currently doing. A lot of people see where I'm at now, but I still remember where I was at when I first started, or even before when I started, to be honest with you. I remembered a lot of the thoughts that I had, a lot of concerns, what I thought was problems at the time. I remember all of those pretty vividly. It doesn't seem like that long ago. So if I had to give my younger self one piece of advice, I would say get the ego out the way and get it out early. I think a lot of times when you're younger, and especially minorities, you can feel like you need to assert your dominance, that you need to assert your ego. So I have changed a lot. When I first started in real estate, honestly, my ego was was high. I was unprofessional in a lot of senses, you know. People would do things and I would want all the smoke. I would be on email threads basically politely threatening people. I would pull up or they would answer my emails or they didn't say a response that I like. I would literally go to their office and talk to them face to face, which is not the best thing to do. I realize that now. There was a lot of things, man, that I did. I would even take some things personally because ego. But now at this point in life, I realize that there's no need to have an ego. There just isn't. Actually, having an ego does hurt you. So there's times when the ego does want to flare up, but I just don't let it. I just stay humble and I just remember what God gives, God can also take very easily also too. So that's what the one piece of advice I would give everybody is check your ego. I make this content for you guys really to give you some free education, to give you some free tips on anything that you need to know in real estate or real estate investing. And I make this because when I was coming up, I didn't really have much of this. Everything was pretty much behind the paywall. So I want to give you it for free, want to give you value so you can be better than me, to be honest with you. And so you can take this and spread it among other people and they can be better also. So make sure you share this video with somebody else who does need to see it. And if you're looking for anything, tips, information when it comes to real estate investing, watch my other videos. Thank you all again.